Hi. Alright, let me prep this before saying this. I still and do love the Spider-Man trilogy. It has inspired me to be a better person and just shown me like so many themes and values, and it's really stood out to most movies in my opinion. Also, in my opinion, I'm going to be explaining why I think Tobey Maguire is the best live action interpretation of Spider-Man and Peter Parker. I'm going to be going down with some notes on why I think he is the best portrayal of the character. So the first point I would say is his double life is probably hectic. Peter Parker has to jump through all kinds of hoops to keep his identity a secret and live a double life as a superhero. Maguire's Peter portrayal is Maguire's Peter portrayed this perfectly. He struggled to keep up with his commitments to high school and later college, as well as holding down two jobs to pay the rent for his imperfect apartment. Came off as a generally dorky kid. Peter Parker is a dork. Andrew Garfield's Peter was all out just wrong, and he was nothing like the character. And Holland's Peter is undeniably awkward, but Tobey Maguire is the only actor who has played Peter as a proper nerd. When he's taking pictures for the school paper, he's authentically nerdy. Holland's Peter continually discards school to battle wrongdoing, yet Maguire's Peter puts forth a coordinated attempt to do well in his studies. His villain dynamics were deeply personal. Tobey Maguire's Spidey always had a unique, deep relationship with his enemies. Peter idolized Otto Octavius. Eddie Brock hated Peter, and Flint Marko murdered Uncle Ben. Harry Osborn was his best friend, consumed by jealousy and misplaced hatred. The Amazing Spider-Man movies tried to force these connections, but they felt unreal, and the MCU has come close, but ultimately ties them more to Iron Man than Peter Parker. But not as well as Raimi's trilogy. He confronted his mistakes. Maguire's Spider-Man gets right the theme of responsibility, and so did Garfield's, but not to the same extent. Putting others before himself in a self-sacrificing way and asking for nothing in return, then accepting responsibility for his actions and facing the consequences. He came clean to Aunt May about letting Uncle Ben's murderer get to him. Tom Holland's Peter has only ever confronted one mistake, not being Tony Stark, which really isn't his fault. He always struggles with his powers. For Andrew Garfield and Tom Holland's Spidey, the powers of web throwing and wall crawling were blessings that continued giving. Be that as it may, for Tobey Maguire's Spidey, those superpowers were both a blessing and a rival. Summarized consummately by Uncle Ben, with great power comes great responsibility. He also began to lose his powers in Spider-Man 2, but he ultimately had to figure out that being Spider-Man was about more than just powers that he acquired by chance. His voice-over narration is the best cinematic portrayal of the comics throughout Bubbles at the point when he's swinging through New York or staking out a villain. He can pre-use all that he's experiencing in his head. This is significantly simpler to pull out in a comic book form than in film form. In the MCU Spider-Man movies, we can see Peter's conversations with the AI in his suit, but that's not the same thing. Tobey Maguire's voiceover comes to translating Spidey's throughout Bubbles in the comics. He was an outsider. Tobey Maguire has said that what at first attracted him to Peter Parker was relating to him as an outsider. Indeed, even his relationships with his dearest companions, Maguire's Peter is by all accounts at a grateful distance, battling to fit in. Andrew Garfield's Peter changed his attitude and started bullying his bullies as soon as he got his powers, while Tom Holland's Peter doesn't have a problem making friends or getting invited to parties. He faced consequences for his action. Tobey Maguire's Peter constantly confronted awful consequences for his activities if he accomplished something terrible. At that point, something awful happened to him, constraining him to learn and develop. When he lets that mugger escape who later killed Uncle Ben, his double life as Spider-Man drove his love interest and his best friend. Maguire's Peter was completely on his own. He had the closest relationship with Uncle Ben. His relationship with Uncle Ben was the closest thing that Peter had to a father. He shared a special bond and indirectly helped in Spider-Man's character and development. Andrew's Garfield's Peter wasn't particularly close with Martin Sheen's Uncle Ben, and Tom Holland's Peter hasn't even mentioned that he even had an Uncle Ben. Maguire's Peter's bond with Cliff Robinson's Ben Parker felt real. The subway scene in Spider-Man 2 captures the character perfectly. In Spider-Man 2, we get to see an incredible action sequence between Spider-Man and Dr. Octopus. Dr. Octopus then bursts the controls of the train, ultimately rushing the train towards a dead end, leading to the death of innocent citizens. Web Slinger leaps into action, doing everything in his power to bring the train to a halt, before being carried into the train unconsciously by the concerned New Yorkers with his mask gone. They can see that the hero celebrated over the city is only a kid, and we can see that this character is very much relatable, and I really connect with the character, and I think loads of people, if they watch this movie, they can connect to the character very well. And for that far, I think this character is very relatable. I think he's got so many aspects that are just brilliant, like the responsibility, the sacrifice and choice that we get to see in Spider-Man 2. And in Spider-Man 3 we get to see forgiveness, where Peter goes onto the dark side, and we get to see this, this anger and hatred towards so many other people in the stories. And I think that really shows that Peter Parker is not just a hero, he's also human, and that really is just perfect. I'm gonna stop this right here and let you listen to a little theme song to end the video off. I hope you guys like this, and this is just an opinion. I just wanted to put this out here just to speak about what I think about this trilogy and what it means to me. If you guys think differently, then just feel free to drop a comment down below on what you think is the best Spider-Man in your opinion, and I'll be sure to explain why I explain, and I would like to see what you guys think about this. Thank you for your time.